My inspiration was my desperation. I would have a conversation for the next decade in my head about my brokenness. That label became my limit. Our struggles over time can become our strengths. If you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. The brain injury was one thing, but that wasn't the real limitation. The real limitation was my story I was telling about that brain injury. I realized that knowledge is power and learning is our superpower.
Jim Kwik has spent his life trying to answer one question: how do we get more out of the most powerful tool we already own, our brain? It's a question that started with his own struggle to learn and eventually led him to become one of the world's leading experts on memory, focus, and learning. He's trained students at Harvard and Caltech and coached everyone from Hugh Jackman to The Rock. His New York Times bestseller Limitless has sold millions of copies around the world, and now his new book Limitless Daily asks what happens when becoming limitless isn't something you achieve once, but something you practice every day. Jim and Rory discuss childhood trauma, the hidden power of the stories we tell ourselves, why nobody teaches us how to learn, memory, focus, morning routines, and what happens to the human brain when we start outsourcing our thinking to artificial intelligence.
What happens in a civilization or society where people are offloading their thinking and those muscles get weaker and weaker and weaker? My fear is not that AI is going to become more human, it's that humans are going to become more artificial.
That's where today's conversation starts. What if the key to building one of the biggest personal brands in the world was building your brain? Today, we are going to talk with one of the biggest personal brands in the world. My good friend, Jim Kwik, is here. He has built one of the most recognizable brands in the world. So we're going to hear that story of how he did it and how we can build our brains so that we can build our brands. All right, Jim. So for the people who don't know, they called you for a while the kid with the broken brain. Can you just tell us that story? Because I think it connects to everything that you've built.
Yeah, my inspiration was my desperation, you could say. Like a lot of authors, took my mess and turned it into my message. I never didn't seek to become an authority in the category that we are in. I had head trauma. I took a fall, hit the windowsill, ricocheted into the radiator, and I just got knocked out. But you know, the after effects was I would have migraines every day. I would have balance issues. I would be forgetful. I couldn't focus. It took me 3 years longer to learn how to read. And that really did a number on my self-esteem. When I was 9 years old, where that label came from is I was being teased. Like, my last name really is Kwik. It's not a stage name. It's not something I did. It's obviously a big part of our brand, but it was who I was becoming. I was called slow. And every time I did badly in school, which is every day, I would say, oh, because I have the broken brain. And that label became my limit. And so, I didn't come from a place of strength, but I realized over time, and maybe some people could relate to this, that our struggles over time can become our strengths, that adversity could be an advantage that would challenge. As I was very challenged, comes change. When I was 18 years old, I was fortunate enough to get into a local university, and I thought freshman meant I could make a fresh start. So I took all these classes because I wanted to show the world, more importantly, show myself I was worth something. And it was just hard. So I took all these classes thinking I would do better, and I did worse. And I was ready to quit because I didn't have the money to be in school. I'd rather my brother have it or somebody else. And that's a big decision to make, like even more pressure. I was like, school's not for me. And I was telling a friend of mine at school, and he was like, well, hey, before you tell your family, your friends you're going to quit school, that's a big life decision. I'm going to see my family this weekend. Why don't you just get some distance from this, right? And so I agree, and the family is very well off. Had a beautiful home on the water, and the fathers walked me around the property before dinner, and Rory asked me a question that I'll always remember, but it was the worst question you could ask me at the time. He's like, how's school? And I just start, and I'm pretty introverted, I start bawling in front of this complete stranger because I have all this emotion built up. I tell him my whole story about broken brain, and I'm too not smart enough to be in school. It's not for me. And he's like, Jim, ask me another question, which is what mentors do, right? They get you to, they ask you questions.
Yeah,
he
gets you thinking.
Yeah, and he got me thinking. He's like, well, why are you in school in the first place? What do you want to be, do, have, contribute? And honestly, I didn't have an answer Because nobody ever asked me that before. I just thought you go to school to get, you go on a certain track. And when I started to answer him, I remember this like it was yesterday. He grabs a journal out of his back pocket and he rips out a couple of pages and he makes me write it down. And I started writing like a bucket list. Like imagine anything is possible. And I started writing these down, and I don't know how long that exercise goes for, but when I'm done, I have 2 pages of like, my dreams. And I think the exercise is done. So I was folding it to put in my pocket and he rips it out of my hand. And I'm freaking out because he starts reading them. And
this is your bucket list, like your
this is like
bucket
this
list.
is like things I've never even thought of or even shared with anybody. And now, complete stranger. You can imagine I'm 18 years old, very insecure, and someone obviously who's doing pretty well for himself is looking at your dreams. And he says, when he's done, he spreads his index fingers apart like a foot, and he says, "You're this close to everything on this list." And I'm thinking, no way, give me 10 lifetimes, I'm not going to crack this list. Smart man. He takes his index fingers and he puts them aside of my head. Meaning what's in between, my mind is like the key that's going to unlock these dreams. And he says, "Jim, you have to read to succeed. And I want you to read 1 book a week. Promise me you'll read 1 book a week."
Wow.
And I'm thinking like, there's no way.
That's no easy task.
I can't even I go to my school. I was like, well, I can't. I have all this schoolwork. Having you listen to my story, I'm like fighting for my limitations. And he's stop. If you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. You fight for your limits, they're yours. And I'm fighting for my limits. I'm like, I'm a bad student. I'm not smart enough. I can't read all these books. I have all this schoolwork. When I said schoolwork, he was like, "Jim, don't let school get in the way of your education." And then, very smart man, he takes out of his pocket my dream list. And this is the audacity. He starts reading my dreams out loud. And something about being that 18-year-old insecure kid, hearing your deepest dreams and desires, goals, like incanted in someone else's voice out in the universe, it messed with my mind and my spirit, something fierce. And honestly, a lot of things on that list were things I wanted to do for my parents, things they couldn't afford, or even if they had money, they wouldn't do for themselves. And so with that purpose, because I think with reasons come results, right? And a lot of us haven't tapped into, it goes from your head to your heart to your hands. If you have goals in your head, becoming like a world authority, creating a certain level of wealth, but you're not acting with your hands, I would say check in with the second H, which is your heart, like the emotions that drive you. Start with why, like Simon Sinek. And so I was like, with that reasons, I agree, because I want to help my parents to read 1 book a week. Now, fast forward, I'm back at school. I'm sitting at a desk, and I have a pile of books I have to read for school, midterms. And I have a pile of books I promised to read. I already couldn't get through pile A. So what do? I don't eat. I don't sleep. I don't have any time. So I don't work out. I don't social. I don't do anything for myself. I just live in the library for weeks and weeks and weeks. One night at like 2 a.m, I pass out. I fall down a flight of stairs in the library. I hit my head again, and I woke up in the hospital like 2 days later.
Jeez.
And at this point, and it was the darkest time of my life, because I felt like, maybe I should have. Like I just felt worthless. And I said, there has to be a better way. And the nurse came in at the exact moment with a mug of tea, because I like to drink tea, and it had a picture of a genius opposite of me, Albert Einstein, but it had a quote on it that I read. I'll always remember. It said, "The same level of thinking that has created your problem, it won't solve your problem." So it made me ask a new question. I was like, well, what's my problem? Well, I have a broken brain. I'm a very slow learner. Well, how do I think differently about it? Well, can I fix my brain? Can I learn how to learn better? And I was like, well, where do you learn how to do that? Well, where do you learn anything? School. So I asked the nurse for a course bulletin for next semester's courses. And I'm looking for classes to fix me, and they're all classes on what to learn. Math, history, science, Spanish, whatever. No classes on how to learn it. I thought it's very interesting that school teaches you what to learn, what to remember, what to think, but not how to do those things. Like going to your kid or coworker saying, focus on this, remember this, study this. That's like going to someone saying, play the ukulele, play the didgeridoo, who's never had any class or training on how to do that. And so I put my studies aside. I started studying my mentor's books that he gave me, because I wasn't getting any traction with the schoolwork anyway. And I started learning about the power of the mind. I was fascinated. I want to solve this puzzle, this riddle, saying like, how does my brain work so I can work my brain? How does my memory work so I can work my memory? And
you said the phrase, learning how to learn.
Learning, yeah.
And it's like, I can't even think, has anyone in my entire life ever taught me how to learn.
I think today it's the most essential skill, especially in the age of AI. Like Limitless, that came out in 2020, sold a couple million copies, dozens of languages. And I think it's because nobody filled in that gap of, it's like an owner's manual for your brain.
Right.
Like you think about, you get a piece of technology and there's some kind of instructions on how to use it. But we're born with the most amazing supercomputer on the planet between our ears, but it doesn't come with that instruction manual. So I wrote that to help people focus, remember, read faster, solve problems, get in flow, optimize their brain.
Yeah, that's a great way of thinking about it. It's like an instruction manual for your brain.
Yeah, and I and then Limitless Daily came because people were like, okay, this book is very dense. How do I live it every single day?
Yeah.
So I created a daily book around it. But going back to my situation, I started learning all about the power of the brain. I started asking questions like, what did people do before like printing presses? How do they remember things? And I started studying the ancient Greeks and ancient civilizations, how they remembered things before. And then 60 days, maybe 2 months into it, a light switch flipped on while I was in school and I started to understand things for the first time. I mean, my focus got so sharp. I started remembering what I was reading, and studying. And my grades, as you can imagine, shot up. But more important than grades, who cares about that? Like my life got better, because with that competence came a level of confidence. And I couldn't help, I got angry, like really angry, because I was like, I struggled for all these years, every single day. And the brain injury was one thing, but that wasn't the real limitation. The real limitation was my story I was telling about that brain injury, that I was broken. And I started, so I wanted to help other people. And so when I was in this phase, I was thinking like, I think for wealth, you learn to earn to return, right? And so, we donate all the proceeds for Limitless to charities. We built schools in Ghana, Guatemala, Kenya, healthcare that kept kids out of school, clean water, Alzheimer's research for women. Women are twice as likely to experience Alzheimer's than men. I lost my grandmother to Alzheimer's when I was 7. So all these challenges, in her memory, because she was my superhero, because my parents had so many jobs and she took care of me. But it's very confusing as a kid. But when I say like I'm on a mission to build better, brighter brains, like I feel like this is a mission, this is a movement that happens to have books, podcasts, courses, everything.
Yeah, and that's part of what I want our audience to understand, right? So we have this, kind of signature quote that we say, you're most powerfully positioned to serve the person you once were. And we tell our members
I just got goosebumps. I call them truth bumps.
Yeah, I mean, we tell people all the time, we're like, if you want to know what the biggest personal brands in the world do, they solve the problems for the people that they used to be. It's not a cliche. Like, this is actually the strategy.
I feel like you learned something from one of two reasons. Like, you learn it how it could benefit you, but don't be selfish about it. Like, I feel more obligation to share it with others. And so I started to tutor kids in college. And one of my first students, she I get emotional thinking about it. She read 30 books in 30 days. Not skim or scan. She really read it, right? And I didn't want to find out how. I taught her how to do that with better comprehension and retention, enjoyment. I want to know why. I'm so fascinated why some people, that common sense is not common practice. Most of your audience, I'm going to go in coaching mode right now because I'm going to call you on your BS, because most people, like you, they probably have forgotten more about success and personal development, marketing, money, whatever, than most of their friends and family have learned. They've forgotten more, right? But common sense is not common practice. But this young lady, she practiced, like she did the work. And I wanted to find out why. And I found out, just like my why was to help my parents, right? But her why was her mother was diagnosed with terminal cancer, was given 2 months to live, 60 days by doctors. And the books she was reading were books to save her mom's life. That's why I'm so passionate about people reading. For any problem people want to solve, like you have decades of experience and you put into a book, which you did, like somebody sit down and read that book in a few days.
Right.
They could download decades of wisdom and research and experience and mistake in a few days.
Yeah.
Like there's no greater advantage than that to fast track your own personal success and fulfillment. And there's a book written on any problem people are facing today. But the problem is that people buy books and they just sit on people's shelves and it becomes shelf help, not self-help, or they're just poor readers. They'll read a page in a book, get to the end, and just forgot what they just read, right? Or they just put them to sleep or whatever. That's why we teach people how to read better. But I wished her luck, prayers for her mom. 6 months later, I get a call from this young lady and she's crying profusely. When she stops, I find out they're tears of joy. that her mother not only survived, but is really getting better. The doctors are perplexed. They don't know how or why. The doctors are calling it a miracle. But her mother attributed 100% to the great advice she got from her daughter, who learned it from all these books. And that's why I'm so passionate about books. So I realized something, I learned something in that moment when I heard that. Number one, I realized that if knowledge is power, then learning is our superpower, right? And superpower that we could all improve and get better at. And it's a lead domino. If you could learn how to learn better, focus, remember, retain, read better, understand better, think better, then what can you apply that to?
Sure.
Everything, money, marketing, martial arts, music, Mandarin, everything gets in your life gets easier, but nobody teaches you that skill. The other thing I learned in that moment, besides that learning is your superpower, I learned my dharma. I learned my mission, is to build better, brighter brains. As the boy with the broken brain, I want to leave no brain left behind. So I'm on a mission to enhance human intelligence, especially in a world of AI, where people are offloading. They call it cognitive offloading, where not only does technology remember your phone, it keeps your to-dos, your grocery list, your appointments, your meetings, it keeps phone numbers. Like, how many phone numbers did you know growing up?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like 50.
How many phone numbers do you know currently?
One.
Yeah, you can count on one hand, right? That they call that digital dementia. So it's like relying on technology to do the thinking and remembering. So what happens to those mental muscles? Like if I put my arm in a cast for a year, it wouldn't grow stronger. It wouldn't even stay the same, right? It would atrophy. That's digital dementia. I termed something in Limitless 6 years ago in 2020 called digital deduction. And this is the high dependence on technology, not only to remember, but to think for us.
Yeah, so you were talking about that before AI came out. So now that AI is here, are you seeing this problem like accelerate?
They just had an MIT study where they had 3 groups of students, A, B, and C. And some of your listeners and viewers might have seen this because it was everywhere. Group A they had to write essays, and Group A used ChatGPT to write their essay. Group B used Google. Group C, no external brain. And they mapped their brain, scanned them, they tested them afterwards to see how much they remembered of the essay. And you can imagine the most engaged, brain was Group C, the one that did the work themselves. And the one that tested the worst for remembering what the essay was about was Group A. And the brain, there's
that
something
use ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Because ChatGPT's, they're outsourcing their thinking to ChatGPT.
And here's the big question, because I think this is the story. I think the most important conversation of our time is, how do you remain deeply human in an age of AI, right? Where AI could compute and process and amplify a brand, right? It could scale a brand, but it can only scale and amplify what you bring to it. Like somebody could use AI to write a nice social media post. Another person could use AI to create the next $1 billion, authority brand, right? But it's the user that makes the difference, right? If the user is chaotic and confused, then it's going to amplify that.
Yeah, it reminds me of we have a saying for businesses. When we teach brands, we say that automation is to your time what compounding interest is to your money. So automation will multiply, but you can't scale chaos. If you just multiply, if you just take chaos and you apply, it just goes crazy. And that's
what technology
does.
About. Like I got to work with a lot of athletes and F1 drivers, reaction time, thinking speed, and so on, focus.
Oh yeah.
Like imagine they have a multi-million-dollar piece of technology they're driving. That's like AI, right? But ultimately, the performance is dictated by the driver, like what the driver can bring to it.
It's
right?
Like it's the jockey, not the horse. Kind of a thing.
It's the human intelligence. So what I'm concerned about, they call it cognitive offloading. If AI is doing the thinking for you, what happens to your own cognitive muscles, your ability to think?
Like you atrophy is the word,
exactly.
Right?
That's what's happening because not people.
That's why AI is so dangerous, right there. That is super dangerous.
Because what happens in a civilization or a society where people are offloading their thinking and those muscles get weaker and weaker and weaker, our judgment gets weaker, our critical thinking gets weaker, right? Our decision making gets weaker. Right? What happens? Then you create a civilization that's easily manipulated by authority, right? By media, marketing, and everything else, because people aren't thinking for themselves. And so it's just like technology. I'm pro technology. We use AI in all forms of our business, right? But you want to build your intelligence before you borrow it. You don't go to the gym and have your friends lift weights for you. because you get no benefits.
That's a great
With
analogy.
neuroplasticity, in order to get smarter, same thing with building muscles. You have to give it novelty and nutrition. You have to give it some kind of exertion or effort, and then you have to feed it proper nutrition. Same thing with your mental muscles. But what happens when AI removes all the friction from that? Now people are cognitive surrendering. They're not even thinking at all. That's their go-to.
It's like they're asking the LLM what they should think, or what they're saying, tell me what to do.
And I've seen authorities, I'm not going to name names because I just think people should practice what they post. They'll use AI so much, but then I'll see them in a live podcast or on stage, then they don't know what they know because they're reading off a teleprompter script or something else like that, and they never built the muscles. So I think AI will not only in some forms replace some people, right? Cognitive offloading, but it certainly will reveal, because it will amplify and scale your incompetence or your chaos or your authority or your expertise, the work that you put into it. You know, I'm very optimistic. It's like technology is not good or bad. Like fire is not good or bad. It could cook your food or it could burn down your home. It's just how it's applied. But let's make it physical, because everyone could relate to the physicality. Like if your office or apartment's on the 5th floor, an elevator is a form of technology. Right? It's very convenient, but then you don't take the stairs. You're not getting your workout. So I'm not saying to not use technology, but I don't think it's so much artificial intelligence as it is augmented intelligence. It's there to be able to be a supportive tool for you to enhance things. But if it's doing the work for you, then we become the tool, right? And that becomes a challenge. My fear is not that AI is going to become more human, is that humans are going to become more artificial. Like natural intelligence can be more artificial.
Wow.
And what happens if we can't think and create all that? Then everything that's created on AI in mass by influence is going to be derivative. It's going to be so basic and generic because they're not bringing anything to it, right? The humanness, our judgment, our creativity, our imagination, our curiosity, our emotional intelligence, our social connection, our leadership, right? Our ability to adapt, to learn, to unlearn, to relearn. So I feel like, yes, we could go into this dystopian place like Terminator or like any of the kind of movies, or this AI revolution could lead to human evolution, because in the workplace, it'll force us to be more human, to lean into the things, because we're not going to outprocess, or compute, AI. So it's going to force us to lean into the things that make us more human: empathy, compassion, understanding, purpose, leadership, right? Adaptability, all the other things that I feel like it could lead to a human flourishing, a new renaissance of humanity.
Like the Jetsons.
Yeah.
You remember watching the Jetsons? You're like, look at all this automation. As a kid, I mean, a lot of people probably don't know that anymore, but it was like, they were like putting the clothes on for you, and then you just live life and you're human and you're doing creativity.
Or Star Trek. We do
Star Trek.
Yeah, we do an annual event for 20 years. And one time we had Quincy Jones in the audience. We had the CEO of Sprint. We had founder of WordPress. We had, this was pick your one, Rod Roddenberry, who's the son of Gene Roddenberry, who created Star Trek. And I pull him on stage and just talk, like when certain basic needs, when you have, replicators that can make food and cure all disease and, these biometric stuff and everything, then we could go into, what did they do? They explored, right? And they create relationships. They were like higher level things. So if AI and technology could automate simpler tasks, great. But we live in this barbell economy where the weights are on both sides, right? You have AI is going to affect the bar, right? The people in between. It's not going to affect as much massage therapists, blue collar workers, HVAC,
auto mechanic,
plumbers, everything, or leadership, right? Because it's not going to lead. But in the middle, coders, what are coders going to do when coding could be done, like vibe coding and everything else? What happens to visual graphic designers? What happens to even writing in our industry? There's so much AI slop, but what happens when you train for these professions and your identity is tied to that, but there's something else that could do it better than you can? Then there's like a crisis of personality that people are going to be struggling with.
Yeah.
Too.
So let's talk about Limitless Daily. Okay. Yeah. So Limitless was the instruction manual for your mind, and you built a personal brand, teaching people how to learn. Why Limitless Daily? Why this book?
So I had this prompt, just like we prompt AI, we have prompts that we're always asking ourselves, right, all the time. People say, why can't I ever get, make this money, or why? And people find answers, right? So those questions become very, very important. The question I got all the time from Limitless, the original, like in 2020, was like, wow, this is a lot of information. How do I live this daily? Literally, that would be the question. But I set that aside. I'm like, okay, I want to be able to help them. And, we have a 20-minute podcast. We have all these social media things that could help them, but nothing was like a blueprint. Now, simultaneously, I told you I'm like a relatively new father. And I'm learning a lot. I think the life you live, the lessons you teach, just hanging out with you and seeing you with your family. So that's especially meaningful and a highlight of just the past couple of days. So thank you for that.
Oh, pleasure.
So I feel, God, this is emotional. I haven't talked about this. So when my daughter was born, we have a 1.5 and a 3.5-year-old son and a 1.5-year-old daughter. When she was born, I write every morning.
Okay.
Like I break down my day so I'm not cognitively switching, where people are multitasking, they feel drained, right? And they make more mistakes and they lose time. People think they're multitasking to catch up, keep up and get ahead. They're not. Every time you focus on something and then you refocus on something else, you lose. It takes 5 or 10 minutes to regain your focus cognitively. It's similar to texting and driving. You can't do both at once really well. You're gonna have more accidents. But the third thing that you waste is a lot of energy. So in the morning, I create, in the afternoon, I consume, and the night I clear. And so I don't have to
say that
switch
again.
up.
Create.
Yeah, 3 C's. So I alliterate just to make it memorable. In the morning, I want to be I'm more creative. In the afternoon, I consume. I do research, right? I read books. I prepare. I consume. My podcast guests, work. And then at nighttime, I want to clear. So where create in the morning, I'm just pulling information out. Consuming, I'm pulling it in. At night, I'm like Control-Alt-Delete. Some people who know what that is nowadays. And because I want to get to sleep, right? So then what do? I journal. I talk to my wife about my day. I plan out tomorrow's day. I get it out of my head, do some yoga nidra meditation, whatever, just to kind of get me baseline, right? Some stretching or whatever to clear. But in the morning, I always write for as long as I can remember. I'll write things like gratitude. I'll write about like what are my goals for today. I was just in the morning when everyone's sleeping. But when I was in the hospital, when my daughter was born, I was seeing her in my wife's arm with her older brother. Because I'm in my 50s, this is personal, but I started writing to my kids. Like, what if 20 years from now I'm not around? What would they need to hear from me to get them through a hard day? And I started to write on things like burnout, on imposter syndrome, a fear of taking that next step, a failure, of what other people think about you, about other people's judgment, about all these different things that that I've dealt with personally, and also my clients have on a regular. And so where Limitless, I wrote in 6 weeks. I don't know a lot of like books that, had that kind of scale that was written less than 2 months, but Limitless Daily, I wrote every single day for 366 days.
Wow.
And I realized that this was the answer to that question. How do you become limitless daily? You make it a routine. I don't know any big brand that did it in one shot. Like you don't brush your teeth for 3 hours and you're just done for the rest of your life.
Yeah, you're really big on routines. Like I know that's one of your things, like more than goals or more than like it's
very much
you're
so.
very into routines.
I really truly believe that first you create your habits and your habits create you. But Duke University says about 40% of our habitual behavior is habit. And like your behavior daily is like unconscious. You're not even thinking about it. The question is, when do we design those habits? So I have a stellar morning routine to help people launch their day. But so that book came from me writing for my kids when they're older. And then I updated with all the science. So it's like Daily Stoic. But instead of pulling from Stoicism, I pull on science, meaning science of the mind, which is psychology, and science of the brain, which is neuroscience. So so there's one brand new idea. It's written in an inspiring way. And then there's one implementation strategy you could do in 2 minutes. So it's no excuse, right? And then a new identity affirmation.
Wow.
And it's just complete in 5 minutes. Because you want to win that day, you have to win that first few minutes of the day. So there's something, this is a big takeaway, I think. Regardless, people, go to get Limitless Daily. When you wake up, when I was doing research for this book, there's something called sleep inertia. And sleep inertia is a transition from a sleep state to a waking state. So certain cognitive functions come online. Your awareness, your alertness, your attention comes online. And also your working memory, which is that very short-term memory, is empty. That cup is empty. You haven't filled it with the day's stuff. That window, sleep inertia, what science shows is the mental inputs you put in that first waking moments has a disproportionate effect on the rest of your day.
Interesting.
Yeah. So this is going to be amazing. Like, so think about it. Disproportionate in what ways? what you put in that window will have a disproportionate effect and leverage and influence on three things: your focus for the rest of the day. Like what you put in there will have a disproportionate effect on what you focus on the rest of the day, which we know that's going to determine a lot of your day. How you frame the day. Like, is this a crisis or is this an opportunity? Is this conflict or is this kind of a resolution? All the framing. And also how you feel the rest of the day. And now, what do most people put immensely into this window first thing in the morning? They grab their phones.
Social,
so what are they amplifying? Comparison, conflict,
stress,
all that stuff. And they wonder why they're stressed out of their mind, why they're focused on everything that could go wrong, why they're framing situations, in probably the most disempowering ways possible. Now, other people use that window for prayer. And that would be amplified.
Yeah.
Gratitude, and it would be amplified, right?
That's what I
or
do.
Set their goals.
That's what we do every morning. So first thing in my head, right when I wake up, is gratitude. And that was one of the things from your Limitless book I remember is you had this little game, as you said, pretend that everything you didn't say thank you for today disappeared from your life tomorrow. Yeah. So I literally the first thought
that's one of the 366 entries.
It's powerful.
So, and this is like I got chills talking about this because I'm so passionate about it, because I feel like this, even more than Limitless, will have a greater impact because we remove all the friction. Because the idea here is you read this book during that sleep inertia. So during that sleep inertia, there's a cognitive process called attentional priming, right? You're priming your attention. So my mantra is mind before media, right? Like nobody would invite in the morning, first thing in the morning, 200 strangers to come in your bedroom and talk about whatever they want to talk about. Like you would never do that, but it's kind of like what we're doing with our phones, right? And so the phone is retraining your mind for two things: distraction, right? Every like, share, comment, cat video, app notification, social media alert, all that's driving you distraction. Wonder why you can't focus with the kids or focus on a client meeting or investor meeting or whatever. Because how you do anything is how you do everything, especially in that first window of sleep inertia that got magnified. But we also train our brain for reaction. Because you wake up the day to grab your phone and, like you're reacting to fires other people, other people, you get a social media post or a comment or a WhatsApp message or an email, and it puts you in a mood for the rest of the day. That's sleep inertia being amplified, right, by your inputs. Our friend Brendan Burchard, or Motivation Manifesto, says your inbox is nothing but a convenient organizational system for other people's agenda for your life. So you're magnifying reaction. So how are you going to build a limitless day if you're just fighting fires and you're on the defense as opposed to proactively planning your day? So I would say protect that window. Mind before media. Intention before interruption, right? Direction before distraction. And that gets amplified. Right. And so I would say the highest achievers, they're rigorous about protecting their attention. So if you want to be wealthy, if you want to be well known, it's going to require attention, right? You feed your brand, your business until it feeds you back. Right. And, as a coach, I have to call people on their stuff. Like, you can't be upset by the results you didn't get from the work you didn't do. Right. And so many people know what to do, but they're not doing what they know. And I feel like, the first part of this is you practice what you post, you live it, right? Because I could roll out of bed, honestly, at 3:00 in the morning and talk to you about this, because all I'm doing is sharing things that work for me that got me out of my mess, right? It's very personal. As you said, serving the person I once was, right? The second thing is always be learning, right? You want to study this. You want to become master at your craft. For 4.5 years, I read a book a day, every single day. I'd rather go a day without reading, a day without eating than a day without reading, honest to God. Like, it's just and because the stats, it was just in the Atlantic, right? We were sharing this in the author WhatsApp group. It was like 16% of people, only 16% across age, ethnicity, and gender read every day. 16%, not social media but books, magazines, that stuff. 51% don't read one book a year, not even in a year. And so how are you going to, if people seen photos with me with Elon or Oprah or Bill Gates or whoever, right? People always wonder how we connected, how we bonded. We bonded over books, because you have to read to succeed. Like Warren Buffett reads 500 pages a day, And so what I would say is like reading is to the mind what exercises the body. And so my subtext of creating this
I love
book,
that quote. Yeah.
yeah, my subtext for this book, my other agenda, which is my mission, is to get people to read it more each day. And this is a frictionless, enjoyable way to get the results of focus and handle distraction, overload, burnout, all the different topics for every single day. And it's great because it's a community thing. So I really think if you want to be, wealthy and well-known, like you want to build do all the social media and get funnels, do all that, the tactical stuff, but get behind a mission that happens to have a book behind it, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, my goal was to get people reading each day. So 5 minutes a day when they first wake up during that sleep inertia, attentional priming time, to magnify the results, because time is the one thing that's constant, right? It's the only thing we all have equal. Everyone has different listening, has different education, network, income, all that. We all have 24 hours in a day. So time, it's not about time management. It's about priority management. It's about mind management. The most important thing is to keep the most important thing the most important thing. And one of the most important things is to protect that first handful of minutes in the morning.
So y'all, Limitless Daily, you need to go buy this book right now by my friend Jim Kwik. It will guide you day by day, right? It's like, if you can read a book a day, great. If you can't, this is like 5 minutes a day to get you on target, on trajectory for your dreams coming true, for maximizing your life, maximizing your business, and making an impact. So where do you want people to go, Jim, if they want to pick up a copy?
That would be amazing. Limitlessdaily.com. You can buy it anywhere. It comes with these fantastic bonuses. There's a great companion that we give for you for free also as well. We'll message you like questions specific for that day so you could reflect on it every single day. Because what AI won't give you is wisdom. Wisdom comes from personal experience, right? Comes from reflection. And so questions being one of the themes, as my mentor talked about, asking new questions, getting new answers, gives you a question every single day to prompt your intelligence, your human intelligence. Because I think human intelligence is more important than artificial intelligence. But,
Amen.
and just remember, I just want to remind everyone that consistency compounds. The goal here is you improve a little bit each day and you become unrecognizable a year from now. Right, you have to reintroduce yourself to your friends and family members, because I truly believe, and I appreciate this, Rory, is that there's a version of yourself, of your brand, your business, your bank account, your brain that's patiently waiting. And the goal is we show up a little bit each day until we're introduced.
I love it. So limitlessdaily.com, go there, buy the book. The bonuses are incredible. Also, depending on when you're watching this, Jim has a very special event that he's doing.
Oh, yeah.
I will be speaking at it. It is part of his book launch. So if you go to limitlessdaily.com, you can figure out, that'll get you in the loop to figure out how
if people want more details, it's limitlesslive.com. And we have an amazing, these amazing authorities.
Yeah, who are some of the people speaking at this event, Jim?
The people who are preeminent in their space. So we have the top father of biohacking, Dave Asprey, multiple New York Times bestselling author, to Stephen Kotler, the master of flow. He's the person, multiple New York Times bestselling author, yourself, and limitlesslive.com.
All right. Limitlessdaily.com for the book, Limitless Live for the event. Make sure you share this episode with somebody who needs to have a better morning routine, somebody who needs to have more focus, somebody who needs to have just a little bit of an encouragement and nudge for how to optimize their brain, and share that with them. Also, give love to Jim. If you enjoyed this episode, go check him out on Instagram, say hi, and let him know you enjoyed it. And until next time, go out and serve the person you once were.